Welcome to the Coming Out and Being Plural in a Singular World panel. We're the Chris's. We're your panel moderator today. I want to welcome all of our guests on the panel. Could you please each say your name and just a little tiny bit about yourself?
Hi, we're Dr. Serenity Sensacion. We're a licensed clinical psychologist and also a plural system.
Hi, we're the Double Gear system. We consist of, hi, I'm Alexis. My pronouns are it, its, and she, her. Up in here, there's also Ava, she, her, and Proto, he, him, or ze, them. It's really important to me that we as a traumagenic system, it's really important that we build a community where everyone's allowed.
We're the Chris's, and we run kinhost.org, and we have the Many Minds on the Issue podcast. We're also a life coach and help people work on internal community.
Well, my name's Jean Reisman. I'm 81, and I've been around for a long time. I got my memories in my low 50s, so I've had a lot of time to deal with what's inside me. And that gave me time to work in the ritual abuse community. I think, ritual abuse is a small segment of people within the DID community. Most of us are plural, and those are my people, and those are the people I've been working with all these 30 years.
Hello, my name is Sarah Clark. We are 31 years old and we live in the Netherlands. We live together with our 2 cats and our amazing 10-year-old son. We got diagnosed with DID in 2011, 12, and 13 to be extra sure, and we have a website called powertotheplurals.com where we give opinionated articles and a support group on Facebook called Alternation.
So being plural in a singular normative world, for whatever reason you're plural, comes with a very long history of stigma, rejection, fear. There's mythology and misconceptions. Whether to come out is a personal choice between yourself and your headmates to choose between being authentic in the world or whether or not you're unwilling to pay a price for authenticity. So today we're going to find out what some of the various experiences are within different plural communities and how they've had trials or tribulations with coming out and how they first came out. So the question number 1 for the panel is, how did you first come out?
Well, I guess in our case it's kind of weird because in a way I guess this would be us coming out now. I think it's a bit more complicated than that in the sense that we have been out in the past on and off, but we decided quite a long time ago. We actually realized it was about a decade ago when we made the final choice of not being out at all. And there were some reasons behind that. But the more time that's passed, the more difficult it's become. And I think that we always intended to be out eventually, but it went from trying to do it in the moment to trying to do it far, far in the future when we were much older. But as things have changed now with us, and it just feels like a time that we need to come out. I don't know what that's going to look like, and we don't even know where we're going to be coming out or to who. But I think that even coming out in this type of public way is, a pretty big deal. Yeah, so we're not sure about the details yet, but I think it has gotten to a point where we just feel way too overwhelmed at not being out. Even though there definitely are consequences to being out, there are also consequences to being in the closet. And so it's just gotten to that point where being in the closet isn't worth it anymore. So for that reason, we decided to come out during this panel, of all things, because we've been thinking about it a lot lately, and it just seemed like the right time to do that.
We realized we were plural on December 1st. Then a couple days after that, we had a big event and we were really stressed. And then plurality sort of went under the rug for a few days. There was a nice little stressful period where it was like, I haven't talked to Proto in like a week. I already don't like this, and I'm not even used to it yet. But then, kind of the later half of December, we started learning to talk more. I still remember the first night when we had like a real conversation with like sentences, like full tonal, emotional. It was incredible. And so once we got to kind of the point where it was like, this is not that we doubted it was real, but like, this is like important to us now. This is something that is centralizing in our identity. And the more we talk about it and grow with it and experience it, the less we want to hide it. And so then it was literally December 31st. We had a like 13-hour travel day coming home from one of our partner's wedding. We're polyamorous, so. And so we spent a lot of time on this trip reading, particularly the articles on tulpa.io were really helpful to us because it was sort of beyond the level of like, what is plurality 101 to here are real experiences of having you and other entities sharing the same brain, which were really helpful to us. And then, that combined with the feelings we mentioned earlier was like, okay, we don't want to not talk about this anymore. And so then we decided we were going to come out before the new year. I'm just like, we're going to start 2019 right with honesty. And so we spend our last layover and plane ride writing a like massive paste bin. Paste bin is basically just like a text sharing site. It is a document, really, just in plain text. We wrote this massive, like several page long paste bin, completely over-explaining stuff and completely, like, underrepresenting how important it was because we were afraid of the singlets. And we can get you the link to that also, but we got home from this long plane trip with this paste bin written on, like, what does this mean? Who are we? What does this mean for you? How do you have to act? Why is this not fake? So on and so forth, trying to really anticipate everything. This was, like, the third time we've come out, like... We're a pro at this point. It's just like, okay, sit down, crank out the paste bin, get ahead of all the questions, drop a bunch of resource links, it'll go smooth. And so once we got home, we went over it with our fiance and was like, hey, read this, does it sound good? We also sent it to one of our plural friends, and with their approval, we posted it, and that was that. Then suddenly everyone knew we were 2, then 2, now 3. But that was later.
It would be a really long story for me to tell about how we ended up becoming really blunt and honest by the time we were 16. But suffice to say, we had already lived a sufficiently dishonest and erratic life due to our plurality, and it was already a mess by the time we were 16. So when we figured out that we were plural, it was like a light bulb went off, and it's like, oh, this is why we were acting that way. We decided to turn everything around and be as honest as possible. Part of our personal journey to coming out was just being radically honest, just really putting it out on the table. A great story, if I can make it as quickly as possible. Our best friend had a friend who was a lesbian. This person came out to her at an interesting juncture when their relationship was invested enough that my friend didn't want to reject her, but not so invested that telling her would feel like a betrayal, like, why did you hide this from me for so long? So there was this sweet spot between being an acquaintance and being a friend where there was this spot in between where there's enough investment to not want to just run away from something difficult. And it had not gone so far that it would feel like, why didn't you tell me sooner? We thought about that, but we opted for sooner because those people that would be scared away from it during that acquaintance phase were not necessarily the types of people we wanted to be friends with. So we kind of moved up the schedule to telling people sooner. If you don't know within 30 minutes or an hour of talking to us, that's pretty amazing.
I came out with the memories first. And we're a ritual abuse survivor. Look what happened to me. And I just opened my mouth and out it flowed. And I told everybody inside. I told taxi drivers.
Wow.
Yeah. And it worked. It was fine.
Mm.
You know, some people were ooh and pulled away from me, but they weren't true friends. And in the incest group, I was in an incest support group at the time. After 3 weeks of remembering, I met my first RA survivor. We clicked. And, that's when I said, these are my people. I'm going to be with them for the rest of my life. As far as coming out as DID, because I'm so weird, because I'm so fragmented, I can't really come out as DID. Because I don't have, I don't switch in that way. What happens is that little groups of fragments come together, little tiny groups come together and form a group and do something. And they're not always the same little tiny fragments. So they don't have names, they don't have personalities. I'm sure there are parts of me that are different from other parts. I behave differently around different kinds of people. Everybody does. You swear in front of your best friend, you don't swear in front of a policeman. So I spent a lot of time wrestling with that. I must be multiple. I must have all these. Why aren't I having them? Why,
Yeah. Oh, that's a whole struggle on its own.
Yeah. And finally, I said, it feels like I'm polyfragmented like this. So I'll just go with it.
Right.
If something else reveals itself, great. So I never really had to come out as
right.
The first time we came out was on a forum called Ford Refuge, which is chat rooms and message board for sexual abuse survivors and incest survivors. And we got welcomed there with open arms. It was such a nice experience for us. We also came out on a Dutch forum, but it wasn't very DID related, and so we didn't get a lot of support there. I'm very glad we started to search for things in English. So if English is not your first language, I highly recommend to do a Google search in English if you can.
Question number 2 for the panel. How do you deal with rejection or stigma reactions when you come out to someone?
That's really difficult. So, like we were saying before, we have tried to be out in the past. It has not gone well. So I think the last response that we had was to go really far into the closet, really. And the reasons behind that were because we were worried about how it would affect our career. Ironically, where we've seen the most stigma has actually been from other mental health providers, other clinicians, and unfortunately that's what caused us to make that decision, because it seemed like if we were out, we would not be taken seriously or competent, or somehow it would put everything into question. And for better or worse, since we've been closeted, we've done very well. I think that we're pretty well respected in our community, professionally, and haven't had any problems, which is kind of what we knew would be the case. But I think that there is this idea that, from others, that if we were plural, somehow that made us unable to do our work, or unable to do, I don't know, a lot of things. When you think of the fact that most people don't even think it exists yet, right? So it's just hard. I'm just thinking of how many times we have been rejected by somebody. We would not even be able to count how many times that has happened. We've definitely lost friendships and had people who we respected who are no longer in our lives. Even when people reject us and they don't know it. So when they talk about people like us, well, we're in the room, but they don't know that we're in that group. That's definitely happened a lot too. So it's just very difficult. I think the way that we deal with that, well, besides going into the closet for a long time, has been to do advocacy. I mean, that's something that we never stopped doing. Unfortunately, we were doing it more as a singlet because it seemed like it would work better, which is sad, but and that's kind of what we did, was we put all our energy into that space. I mean, there are some people who are accepting, and I think that when you have those people, it's very helpful to be able to get through the times when you have people who are not. So I think that's also important to keep in mind too, is that there are people who will be accepting. Now you have to find them. They might be a smaller group, but they definitely do exist. So that's something to keep hope about. And at the same time, it's very difficult when you have people who you care about who can be rejecting of you.
I mean, usually I just block people and move on. I have more than enough friends and community that support us through pretty much anything at this point. I mean, we've thrown everything at them at this point. We just keep diving deeper and deeper into minority identities. So really, it's just like, okay, well, if you're not willing to put in the like 15 seconds of emotional labor to learn how this works, then screw you. I mean, I know that's not like the best answer, but we got tired of playing the emotional labor game after we came out as trans. Once was enough with dealing with all the questions, with dealing the I don't believe you, prove this to me. Once was enough, so we just don't do it anymore. Yeah, I mean, I talk about that a little in the Pastebin. Like, the reason I realized I was plural was because I was able to compare it to our trans experiences.
Generally speaking, we cut people off at the pass. We come out to people with a period at the end of the sentence, and we're extremely blunt and straightforward about it. We don't really leave a lot of wiggle room for questioning and doubting. It's how we come out to them that usually forces the person to either have to accept it or completely reject it. And we haven't had anybody reject it in years. I'm trying to even think of a time when somebody did. Nobody's done it to our face. We come out, let's say in the business community in our local area, we come out as being plural, and we don't know if those people never talk to us again, because people come and go in the business community anyway. So let's say somebody comes to a women's luncheon, we admit to being plural. We don't know if they don't show up again just because it doesn't work for their schedule, or because they don't want to be in the room with somebody like me. And I don't think the world revolves around me, so I think it's much more likely that it just doesn't work into their schedule than that they're not coming back because of us. So we think it's much more likely that people have their own issues and that it's not about us. We don't really know whether or not people are quote-unquote rejecting us in the local area. We haven't had anybody really say to us straight out, like, we can never deal with you again.
I either drop those people or I try and educate them. You know, when people say, oh, you just made that up, you're crazy. I guess you did live through it. You're very lucky. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right them all. There are enough people who are kind and taxi driver. One taxi driver said, this was an English taxi driver, he said, oh yeah. He said, we know all about it. That house over there, they, you know, Satanists that live there. And the other taxi driver was American. And he said, I'll pray for you. And that's so sweet. I mean, that's sweet. It's very, very nice.
That is a nice thing to say. Might also be very triggering for some people, but it's a nice thing to say. They always have a good intent, but they might not understand the harm that their words can do. But yes.
Well, that they're more kind people than
for sure
rejecting people.
Yeah, the nice people for sure outnumber the bad guys. Yeah, that's a good thing to remember as well.
And the more support you have, the less you care what other people think.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think it also really can empower us and strengthen us if we are together, work together, be together, talk to each other. Yeah.
Right.
I guess I truth bomb people and I overshare too many facts about DID, and I guess I have so many facts in my head that I can counter people's comments these days. But if people are really stigmatized and they do not believe in DID, for example, then I just leave the conversation. I see no fruit there.
Question number 3. What's the most frustrating thing about dealing with singular normative society?
I mean, I think I just go back to the fact that we don't exist, right? That we're not real. I'm saying that these are the things that we're being told. Obviously, I don't believe that. That would be one of the biggest ones, is like going between being either invisible or violent. Those seem to be the most common. Not that either is true, but that's how we're treated. So that's really hard. Also, the fact that coming out is so difficult and sometimes seems like not even an option, because if your two options are you're making it up and you're lying because this isn't a real thing, and no one in the system exists, or you're violent and I'm worried that something's wrong and I'm scared of you now. Those aren't really good odds. So I feel like for us, I think those are the really big ones. I mean, there's so many other things that are concerning, but it's like until we get past that, I don't know what else we could even work on. Because it's hard to talk to somebody who, I'm talking about singlets specifically, who think that you're not real, or if they do think you're real, they're terrified and frightened of you. Like, so I think that's the biggest issue, is the level of stigma. If somehow that was able to be reduced, then there are plenty of things that we could probably work on, but I think those are the ones we'd have to start with.
For us, the most frustrating thing about a singular normative society got there. Probably, honestly, just having to deal with explaining things all the time. Like, going back to more trans comparisons, like, when we came out as trans, people knew what that was, basically. And this something really interesting that I've been sort of thinking about ever since realizing we were plural is, like, the ultimate goal, the most common ultimate goal, I'm just going to throw in all the exceptions here. When you're trans, typically you want to be in a state where you blend in. You know, I'm not saying, you have to transition, have to get the surgery, whatever, but in general, you want to be in a state where you blend in your more desired quote-unquote normal way. And now that's obviously not true for, non-binary trans experiences. I'm only speaking to my own as a binary trans woman, but plurality is sort of the opposite. Plurality takes you farther away from the expected norm. Once, you can't just, like, once you're an out and more functional plural person, just blend in anymore. That's just not an option to you. So for me, the most frustrating thing is, like, I don't come out as plural in my college classes because I just don't want to explain it to that many people. It's too much work. I can't just blend in as plural.
You're really asking all the hard questions today. We find it very difficult to deal with names and faces. I guess that's one of our biggest frustrations because our filing system sucks when it comes to filing people. But aside from that, I would say it's the other memory lapse issues, like the discontinuity between what we remember as a whole and what we each individually can recall easily without digging around and staring off into space for 5 minutes waiting for some stuff to come up from the back. For example, we'll go over board reports and financials. We're on the board of directors and we'll see something and we're like, oh, that looks like an outlier. Let's ask about it. And the person's like, you asked about that last month. And that's kind of embarrassing. We also have to call them on it, not to get frustrated because of our mental illness issues or our mental difference issues in how we recall information. So we also have to call them out, like, not everybody here is equally able to being frustrated about our memory issues. Like, what if it was somebody with a traumatic brain injury? There's some other issue. Like, don't get so frustrated because I may not remember this. You can let me know that I did ask last month, but don't be rude about it. So those are the types of issues we have, is just the expectations that are put on us to have continuity that other people usually expect when they're dealing with a single body, that we don't always have that.
Singular society?
In the singular normative society, it means like because everyone is mono-minded, as you call it, and we are plurals. So, what is the most frustrating thing about that?
I see autistic people be rejected.
Mm.
I see neurotypical. I
Yeah.
think that's an awful word, neurotypical. I think so many conditions and points of view are stigmatized. It's not just us. But what's frustrating for me is that we've been so intimidated that I can't make new face-to-face friends. They're hiding. That is very frustrating for me. And it's frustrating that there aren't more therapists learning about it, that graduate schools don't teach trauma. Everything should be trauma-informed.
I agree.
That's a cute little word, trauma-informed. Schools, teachers should be able to recognize kids that are being abused.
Absolutely. Yeah, and they should recognize dissociation in itself.
Medical students, dental students should be taught about this. Trauma is so ubiquitous, and we just shove it under the rug, and that's very.
I want to say that we have to pay the full ticket price at the zoo, but that's a joke. My real answer is the way the media portrays us still, and that there is no real understanding of the damage that does and the hurt that causes. So yeah, that's the most annoying thing for me, the media and how they portray us, or keep portraying us, I have to say.
Question number 4. Has anyone accused you of harboring violent headmates, and how did you handle it?
Well, we were literally just talking about that. So, yes, people have definitely accused us of that. It's been a while, but it's been a while because we've been closeted for a very long time. So when we were attempting to be out multiple times in our life, that definitely happened. And don't get me wrong, some of us sometimes were jerks, but you know what? Everyone has times when they're a jerk, okay? I think that there was this assumption of like, oh, if this person's angry and they knew that we were plural, the level of fear was very different. And there is this kind of fear of like, oh, this person's gonna like flip out and kill me, and or someone in the system who I don't even know about will do this. And it's like, okay, no. Like, why are you thinking that of just a system? I mean, we're all just people, just like you. So that'd be the equivalent of like, oh, to me, this is what it feels like. It feels like I introduce someone to my family, and they tell me, which one of your siblings is going to murder me? So that's what it feels like to me. And it's like, what? And don't get me wrong, maybe if you had a sibling who was violent, that would be concerning. I mean, of course that happens, but this isn't what we're talking about, right? We're talking about this kind of assumption of, it's something I don't understand. The media says that you're violent. I'm scared of you. So obviously there's somebody in there that's violent who's going to attack me specifically. I don't know. It's ridiculous, and at the same time, it's very hurtful because it happens a lot. And it's something that's really hard to combat when all of us are dealing with movies and TV shows and books and everything that put people who are similar to us in that position, right? So that idea is being repeated over and over again for everyone, that if you're in this group, you will eventually be violent. So that's difficult. And I think it's really hard for people who are system, right? Because then you're basically also being told from whenever you figure out what's going on, that you will eventually be violent. And I think a lot of people might not even think that they're plural, just even based on like, well, I've never felt that way, so maybe I'm not in this group, right? For example. Other people might say, well, I'm not going to be out because if that's what people think of me, then I would rather just be closeted. So, yes, it has happened a lot. Like we said, more so when we were younger and more open about it. I'm sure that like anyone finding out about this right now will probably ask us something like that again at some point, even though there's no reason for them to think that. It's really frustrating because what do you even respond to that? You know, I don't know, but it is something that we have to deal with because it happens quite often, which is too bad.
I don't think that was actually one that we got, no. Maybe some people who hate us, but we block everyone, so whatever. There's a lot of people on the internet who don't like us, but I don't care. I mean, but no one that we were like, you know, are or were close with said anything like that.
We asked them if there was a difference between coming out as DID versus coming out as plural, and this was their answer.
Because I feel like the Hollywood stereotype is more associated with the medical terminology, but yeah, I'm kind of glad we didn't have to deal with that one.
Our ex-husband accused us of being consistently inconsistent, but I don't think that counts. No, actually, I don't think so. We're trying to remember, going back through our files, we don't have anybody who's ever accused us of being violent or harboring somebody violent. I don't think so.
No.
Good. We asked that question to debunk the myth that people with DID are dangerous.
No, I'm not dangerous at all.
Me neither. You didn't come across as dangerous during lunch either.
Yeah.
No.
People who've known me all along, you know, they know I'm a wimp. And people I meet, they sort of see me that way too. But I have had a great deal of trouble coming to terms with the fact that I've harmed people in the cult.
Yeah, that's one of the really tough ones, right?
Yes. That was horrible. And I was afraid that when I first got this that I was still active and practicing. So I was afraid I was still harming people. And no, I've put that one to rest too.
Yeah.
But I think that's really, really hard to live with.
Right. I think for clarification, we should specify that the harm that both you and I have done in the past was forced upon us by others, and not something that we chose out of our own free will.
I guess if you're amnesic for something, how do you really have free will? Of doing it. That makes sense to me. You have no idea you're doing something. Where is free will in that? And yes, they physically force you to do it. They train you to do it. They hypnotize you to do it. They threaten to kill somebody else if you didn't do it. You know, it goes on and on the ways that they manipulated you into hurting other people.
Yeah.
And now that they're not doing that anymore because I'm not in that environment.
Right.
And now I don't choose people.
Yeah. Now we choose ourselves and we choose good things, right? And that's why we're not harmful or dangerous people.
Oh.
Yes, unfortunately, our family accused us of that. They had no grounds for it. It was just a general worry when we got diagnosed with DID. And we explained to them that we were more likely to be violent towards ourselves than towards anyone else. But yes, that has been a struggle for a while for them to believe that there wasn't actually anyone inside who would harm anyone else like that, what they had envisioned, I guess. Basically, we just gave them examples of what our alters are like, especially from childhood, so they could remember, and they acknowledge actually that they knew these alters even by name, which was also very verifying for us and validating, not to them for some reason, but to us it was. And I think by just explaining our situation and that there is no danger like they portrayed or they envisioned, I think over time we just proved it to them that there wasn't. So their statement had no basis, no valid grounds.
Question number 5. Did you lose any friends or family? Did you lose a job or anything else? What loss did you have when you came out?
Well, I guess we're going to find out about that. Um, I really hope that nothing like that happens to us, but that is one of the reasons that, well, not that it hasn't, so I'll go back to that in a minute, but that's one of the reasons we've been closeted for so long, because we are afraid of how it's going to impact our job and our friends, and that's very difficult. So I'm hoping that it doesn't. Our hope would be that people would see us as the fact, well, that we're still the same people. They just didn't realize they were talking to multiple people and not just one. And all the good qualities we had, we still have now. You know, like all the things that they like about us are still here, just maybe they didn't realize who they might get along with better. And that we're still competent in our job, and you know, that everything else is the same. So so basically we're hoping that things stay that way, and that we don't have a really negative reaction to this. But that was one of the things that held us back, was this worry about, like, okay, is this going to affect our career? Because of the amount of stigma, especially in the in the psychology community. I mean, in some ways, ironically, right? But the level of stigma in the psychology community towards anyone who's plural, towards anyone who has mental health issues, I would say. Not that those are the same. Let me just be clear with that. But I just think that they're put in the same place. And there's this idea of, like, oh, well, if that's the case, all these other things must be true too, whatever they imagine of you. So that's our fear right now. In the past, we've definitely lost, like we said earlier, a lot of friends. We did also lose our family, but that I wouldn't say that was directly related to this. It was a separate thing. Besides for that, I feel like it's more that we've always feared that we would lose our job, or the potential of having a job. So something where I don't really want to go into too many details, but because we did try to come out really early on in our career, multiple times actually, we were told point blank that because of that we would not succeed. And in fact, we should drop out of any program that we were in, because there's no way that we could be good at anything related to psychology. Of course, that was incorrect, considering how far we've gotten and how successful we've been in our career. But there was a real fear, not that we couldn't do the work we're doing, maybe a little, but I would say overall, that wasn't the concern. The concern was, oh, this is what my colleagues think of me. So they think that if we're a system, that somehow that makes us less than them. And so that, you know, that's really scary. And so I would say, for anybody out there who's worried about their job, it is a real fear. I mean, it's one of those things where you're not supposed to be discriminated against, but I mean, in reality, I do think that people are. So just be careful, because, you know, we all need to survive. I mean, we need money to live, all of that. So if you're not in a position where you can come out, then, you know, consider maybe not temporarily, if you need to do that, or the fact that maybe your job doesn't need to know. Like, you can be out to a lot of people, just not your workplace. The reason we're focusing on that part more is, I mean, the rest of it's all equally painful. But with your work, I mean, that can be your livelihood. So it not only affects you emotionally, it can affect the safety of your system. So we're just saying to, you know, I mean, to keep in mind that people do discriminate against us. And the same with families. I mean, I know of systems who aren't out because their family supports them, like financially, I mean. And then they can't come out because they're worried their family will cut them off. Like, these are real concerns. So I think it's something that's just really personal, and there can be potentially negative consequences that you need to keep in mind. At the same time, there are negative consequences in not coming out. Just the pressure of it alone, and shame, and just being alone. It's very difficult. So it's just a hard choice. And unfortunately, none of us can control how other people are going to respond to us. There is a lot of stigma right now. But, I think that by more people coming out, and this is one reason we wanted to do this, and being open, maybe that can change in the future at some point. Because I think maybe if people realized how many of us there are, that we can start to change that narrative, of like, oh, if this person I know, if they're a system, and I get along with them just fine, then I don't know that all systems are whatever people think. So those are our thoughts on that.
Really, we had the biggest loss in our life before we came out, just between figuring out that we were plural and coming out. So I don't think anything ever will hold a measuring stick to that loss. It just doesn't measure up. But at the same time, over the years, we've experienced loss in the frustration of dealing with this body's parental units and the frustration of them being in horrible denial over things that happened when we were younger. And they're continuing to be abusive. So it wasn't so much what they had done, but that they were not apologetic about it and didn't own it. And they didn't change because of the knowledge of things that they had done that caused us to disown them. They disowned us first, but that's a long story. In the meantime, we decided, we actually like that. We're much more comfortable without them in our life. So, hey, forget them. They're separated and divorced long ago. But we had problems with each of them individually that caused them to disown us. And then 2 years ago, we said, you know what? We actually like this arrangement. And we made it permanent on our end. So I guess that's to say that our loss that we've experienced is parents. We also have a lot of other parents. We have intentional parents outside of the ones that gave us blood and bones. We don't lack parenting, and we're 50 years old, but we get parenting from acceptable parental figures that are not our blood parents. We've always had that. As a kid, we had horrible parents, and we had lots of other people who cared about us, satellites around the family that were our intentional family, the people we looked to be parental figures for us and inspire our own internal caregivers. So we've always had parental figures, I guess, of some type outside of our family unit.
I have already lost my family, really.
Yeah.
Both my parents were dead. I guess that made me feel safe enough to remember. And my brother had a stroke. He was completely out of it. So I didn't have family to lose because I'd already lost him. But yeah, I got some friends. And my wonderful therapist said, Jean Mitchell, of course, abandon. You will get new friends. They will be better. And he was right.
I wanted to answer this question with no, but I don't think that's true, because when we went to the government about getting assistance with getting a job, they actually told us that we are no longer allowed to work because they cannot be responsible for us if a little would come out in the workplace, which had happened, unfortunately, a few times due to people's birthday and them handing out goods like treats. And another time a candy machine broke down, and so we had a sort of meltdown. One of our littles came out. And so based on that evidence that they had of that, they declared us unfit to work completely. And so I do think that we got a clear no on that front from our government. But it does allow us now to do much fantastic work that we would not have been able to do if we had a 9-to-5 job. And so when we just got this news, it was extremely devastating. It's so hard to deal with. But right now, 6 years, 7 years later, we're doing so much better, and we are actually very grateful for the position we are currently in. Our government provides well for us financially. We don't rely on other, we can do everything else for free, basically, as we don't need another income. So everything that does come in is spent again for, this conference, for example. So our government provides well for us, and because of that, we are able to do things like this, and that is fantastic. and I would not have had that opportunity or the ability, the energy and the spoons to do these kind of things if I had to work a 9-to-5 job.
Question number 6. Who's been your best supporter in being out, if you can out them or just talk about them?
I would say that the biggest support, we're looking at it two ways. So on the one hand, the biggest support would be us internally. Us in this system get along really well. We do treat each other like family, and I think that we are family, and I think having that level of support is really useful. We've had great relationships with each other for a very, very, very long time. So just having that internal support and having people that literally know what you're going through, because we are in the same system, right? I would say besides that, probably our therapist, to be honest, our current one. Before that, it was much more difficult because every therapist we went to was terrible. I mean, we're not just saying that, like every single one was terrible. And especially now that we're a psychologist ourselves, it's like, not only were they just crappy people, but they were unethical and did some things that maybe they should have lost their license for, honestly. So the reason that we say that is because at the time, I think that many of the reasons that we didn't feel safe coming out is because we didn't have a support system, and not even from the person that you would think would be, because we've gone for a lot of therapists in our life. So, but the current one we've had for a long time, and they're actually supportive, which is weird, but very helpful. At the same time, we know that like not a lot of people can have that. I think we're lucky to be able to have that ourselves. So if you don't, online communities are really helpful. That's been another support. Not as big for us, just because I feel like we need people that we we know a little bit better, or I don't know. Not that you can't know people well online, but we tend to have more acquaintances online, basically. So for us, it's been more of a need to have somebody that we're closer to that's supportive. But if you have someone IRL or online that you're close to, either another system or a singlet, but someone you're hopefully all out to, I think that could be a really good support. You basically just need somebody who doesn't see you in the way that everybody stigmatizes you. So, and I think we've been lucky that here and there we have had friends who are tolerant of us. I think some try to be accepting, but it's very difficult. I think there's always this barrier between not really understanding where we're coming from, and I would say that few understand how difficult it is to not be out. Usually it's people who have some other type of marginalization can see it a little bit better, but others can't. So again, I would say that for us it definitely is internally that we're all supporting each other, and definitely our therapist. I think those two things have been really useful in figuring out, I don't know, how to be out, but also to like know that support isn't going away just because we're coming out.
We run an in-person women's luncheon every month, which is kind of ironic because we're non-binary. It's our co-director of the women's luncheon, I'd have to say. She's an amazing supporter of the Chris's. She'll call us the Chris's. She'll reference us as they. She gives us the space in these women's meetings to come out. She's never said, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. So I'd say she's like one of our biggest supporters in the community that we're in just allowing us to be ourselves.
My best support is my son. He is so understanding. My normal is his normal because he grew up with me having DID. He said in one of our videos on our channel, he actually said that he had never seen us switch, or that he had never met another alter, and it's very much not true, especially since now he wants to speak English at home when he's with me. So that gives us the opportunity for more alters to be out, because we have more alters We speak English with our tone of voice. Like some of our authors have a very different tone of voice. And so our son now even meets more authors than before now that we speak English, and he doesn't notice, which for us is fantastic. We don't want him to notice anything. He knows about our DID and he sees our anxiety and stuff like that, but we don't necessarily want him to like see obvious switches or whatever. I'm not sure why. Maybe that is stigmatizing in itself. But I just, like, he is almost 10 years old, so I don't want to put that on his plate, basically, what I'm saying. Right, he already has such a great understanding at his age, and so I don't think he needs an even bigger understanding of us saying that we switched or anything like that, right? We're always mom, so, or we're always parent, but we all say mom. So yeah, he is our biggest support. We love him so much, and he loves us, and he's the reason we keep going, and we are so grateful that he is in our life.
Question number 7. What's the best thing about being plural in a singular world?
I would just say first that we appreciate that you have a more positive question, because the other ones have been pretty hard. But there are many things. I mean, I really do love my family. I mean, our internal family. And it is pretty cool to be able to have them have each other. We have each other at all times, you know. And not only in like negative things, I mean like with ridiculous stuff like watching The Bachelor. Don't judge us too much, but quite a few of us like that show because it's just so terrible. And it's just nice to be able to watch something silly like that and have, you know, we're just all hanging out and talking to each other. Going to the movies is great because we like going to the movies in a group. So that's always helpful. I mean, with people that we're open with, so with each other in this case. Also, I mean, we are Puerto Rican. I don't know if all Puerto Ricans agree with this, but I feel that most Puerto Ricans on the island are very vocal when watching a movie, and which is fine. This is what I enjoy about watching a movie. But the reason we bring it up is because it's something funnier that we can be very vocal internally with each other. When we go watch a movie, everybody's talking through it all the time. But we don't have to worry about bothering someone next to us because none of them can hear us, so it doesn't matter because it's an internal. It's a headspace conversation, so to speak. Besides that, I would say we are able to split up the work really well. So a few of us do certain types of jobs and others do other things. Like for example, one person in the system is really good at like admin type work, so they'll help with that sometimes. Another one is really helpful when we present and at research. Like we all have different abilities, and then and then with clients a little bit different. Only a few of us are a clinician, but I think it's really helpful to be able to like split up the work like that. Besides that, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, even though it's so stressful, we actually really enjoy being plural. There's nothing, I don't know that we change anything about that. And one of the reasons is because there are a lot of positive things, but to the point where I'm not even sure how to verbalize them. But the way that we live our life with each other is just really positive. And we're glad that we have that support in each other.
That's probably the best part of plurality. It's like, yeah, I have 2 super cool people around more or less all the time. I play video games with Proto and we make Ava do our homework and everyone's happy. It's perfect.
We're complete nonconformists. It's part of our actual trigger baggage, and we have a whole episode on our podcast about it, but we are so not into being conformists. So I think we enjoy being out because it's bucking the system. It's being loudly different. We're different, like in every way. Polyamorous. We're bi or pansexual. We're pagan. We don't conform when it comes to anything to the mainstream. And we're eclectic pagans, so we're not even any particular brand of pagan. So it's just how we are. We're different than anything that anybody else is. So it helps when people think they understand people just by looking at them, and then they talk to us and find out that that's not true. It helps to open up their mind just a little bit. or close it, I guess. But most bias and bigotry comes from not ever having actually spoken to someone. Being a plural, being polyamorous, being a pagan, when we talk to someone, we're actually cranking open their mind. And I guess that's really it. We like to watch the little light bulbs go off in their eyes when we're talking to them. It's kind of, I guess, a Chris's amusement to keep an eye on those eyes and the eyebrows and see those little like quirks as we're talking to them, and they start realizing that their view of the world is this tiny homogeneous lens that they're looking at the world through. And as we're talking to them, they start realizing the world is a much bigger and much weirder place than they ever thought imaginable. That they hang out with people who look like them and talk like them and act like them and believe like them, and that there is all this other stuff out there. It's opening minds. And every time we open a mind, we're helping other people who are different than the prevailing culture to have a little more access, a little more understanding.
I guess that I'm never alone. I'm not really sure how to answer this question.
It really means the world to us.
And question number 8. What's your best advice for plurals who are thinking about coming out?
I feel like we sort of mentioned that a bit before, a little bit of being cautious in how and when to come out. We more worry about things related to any way that a system could get hurt. So either loss of finances or abuse or violence, or any type of way that you all are at risk. It's okay not to be out if you can't be, or if you don't want to be. But let's say that you do want to, and there are reasons why you can't. That is okay to make that decision in the moment. What you could do instead is, if possible, work towards a way where you can be out and not have to worry about that. For example, if you're financially dependent on someone and you think that if you all are out, you would lose that, if there was a way for you to become financially independent, pursuing that. But that's not always the case. Sometimes that's not a possibility. So just thinking about how realistic it is to come out and the consequences of that, and then making your decision based on that. If you're not able to be out publicly, I think we did mention this before, but there are ways to be out, like either online or with certain people, so that you all don't have to feel as stressed. If you have access to a good therapist, that is useful. And I don't mean somebody who's going to work with you to change you being plural. I'm not saying that. Somebody who's able to accept you all being plural and support you in the stress that comes with that, because we're treated pretty badly, and it's helpful to have that support. Besides that, I just think it's such a personal decision. So make sure that not only are you making the decision for you, but that you're checking in with everyone else in the system. Because that wouldn't be fair either, right? So if some people are really against it and some are for it, you'll have to figure that out. It wouldn't be fair to out yourself at the same time outing someone in your system who maybe has a really strong reason why they don't want to be out. And that can also be complicated. So coming to some sort of agreement where everybody is okay enough with the decision being made. Besides that, it's a journey, right? Like we said before, we did try to be out multiple times when we were younger. Never quite worked out, and then we were closeted for a long time. So these things happen. I think as long as you all are doing what's best for you mentally, emotionally, financially, and then make sure that you make a decision based on that.
I can't answer that because I'm so plural. I'm just as well be one. This is the analogy. Water vapor forms ice crystals and forms a snowflake. Okay? So they're a discrete group of atoms forming a snowflake. Falls on the ground, melts, and the atoms disperse. They're never back that snowflake. So there's nothing stable enough to be an alternate.
Yeah.
I think it would be sort of wonderful.
Hmm.
I get jealous.
Yeah, you're jealous?
Yeah, of some of my friends who have multiple.
Hmm. I'm sorry that it's different for you, and I understand that it must be a lonely place. But I'm glad that you find that community within the RA community, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's good.
Our minds may not be exactly the same, but the experience would be the same.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I guess in the plural community, I'm not neurotypical.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
If and when you come out about anything, and I don't care if it's polyamory, your religious beliefs, anything across the board, when you come out, say it with a period at the end of the sentence. When you have doubts, when you have insecurities, other people detect it and they can hear it in your voice. So when it's a flat statement, it doesn't leave them figuring out how to poke holes in it. But if you say it with a question mark at the end, like, oh, I'm plural, that doesn't sound very definitive, does it? They're going to go, are you sure? They're going to start poking back at you. But if you say, yeah, I've got a lot of people in my head, then there's no room for them to argue with it. They may try anyway, but it gives them less room. When you have your own insecurity, it brings up insecurity in others. If somebody runs into the village feeling really panicked, the whole village panics. The whole village is concerned. The whole village is looking for, like, what's happening? What's going on? Where's the tiger? You don't want to ever make them think, oh my God, where's the tiger? And get all paranoid and defensive. It's like, if the tiger's following you, we want you out of here. You want to walk into the village with confidence and say, yeah, by the way, I saw a tiger on the way here. In this way, they're like, okay, did it follow you? But this way, they're not panicked. Panic is contagious. So don't have that insecurity, that worry, that fear when you come out. Just say it. Lay it on the table. Just show your hand and be like, yep, I've got a full house.
Please talk it over with your system first. That's my best and biggest advice. Please talk it over first inside. And especially with your protectors. Make sure it's safe. Make sure who to exclude. Make sure that those you tell are not still in contact with your abusers. Or if they are, that you know for sure they won't tell them. Those are my best tips. And realize that everything that you put on the internet is on the internet forever, basically. So I would be careful with sharing certain details that could harm you now or in the future. If you do decide to come out, we wish you the best of luck.
And that's all the questions I have today. So do you have any last remarks or comments for our audience?
We're very grateful that we had the opportunity to be able to participate in this. I mean, we were debating it for a long time. Honestly, even before we knew that this conference was happening, we've been thinking about this a lot, and I think it gave us a space to be able to be out in a way that felt comfortable to us, and that hopefully helps other people to be able to come out as well. So we're just grateful for that. We also hope that maybe other people can figure out what works for them, and hopefully people who want to come out are able to. That's what we really hope for in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, just really glad that this exists, and hoping that other people can get some real value out of seeing people in their own community, not just us, the other people on the panel, all the other panels that are going on, and talks and whatnot, and seeing that they're not alone, and that there are people who are working through this that are similar to them. And I hope that helps everybody.
Yeah, go tweet and hashtag plural gang if you're plural, endogenic, traumagenic, DID, OSD, DDNOS, and aren't mean to other people. And if you want to find more of my content, I'm on Twitch and YouTube as Proto Magical Girl, Twitter and Instagram as Princess Proto. Come join the Plural Gang Discord server. If you like listening to me talk about stuff like this, I also have a podcast called Setting the Record Queer, where we talk to cool queer people about the cool stuff they do.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. a growth opportunity for me, really.
Yeah.
And I hope that it comes out sounding coherent. It's new for me. It's the first time I've ever done this. I guess it's my gift to do it. I am really grateful that I have this opportunity. Hey, my website is ra-info.org, and my blog, which is much more personal, is ritualabuse, all one word, .wordpress, all one word, .com. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I guess it's up to each individual and each individual group to decide whether you want to be authentic in the world. And if so, what prices you're willing to pay for it. So are you willing to be rejected or for people to move away from you because of this? But also when you're going to do it, if you decide to come out, to really be sure of yourselves, be entirely in your own power when you do it. It's not for others to question who you are. It's a gift to them. When you take down walls and layers and masks and you reveal who you really are to them, that's a gift. You're all valuable and you're all precious, and they should appreciate you allowing them to see you without the masks and the veils. It should be a gift to them. And the types of people who think it's something about them, with some caveats for maybe parents and stuff like that, but really, if they think it's about them and not about you being more authentic, then maybe they're a little too selfish to be around. So it can also be a great litmus test for the value of real friends and real people in your life. The people that appreciate authenticity are really much better to be around. So we kind of use this as a filter to maybe scare away the people we don't think are worth being around. Preemptive coming out. And we also realize that we have access and we have privilege. So we can come out in places that other people can't. So this isn't to judge anyone who can't come out because of the culture they're in, because of the violence inherent in their culture about mental health issues, or because they don't have the power to move if the neighborhood doesn't like them anymore and things like that. Really have to judge for yourself your own safety level in deciding whether or not to come out. If you have access and privilege and can move freely through society, that really makes a big difference in whether or not you can come out. And it can be very difficult in certain situations. If you're dependent on other people for money, for access to things, for transportation, it can be very difficult to come out, and maybe even a bad idea. So just because we're kind of glib about it and we've had lots of great experiences, we're not saying everybody else ought to do it because they'll have great experiences too. It's really an individual or a collective's choice, and you have a lot to weigh. If you decide to come out, put your foot down about it. Don't be wiggly about it. Be really firm about it and be absolutely positive about it. I really do firmly believe it'll go better for you if you're just straightforward about it.
Thank you so much, Chris, for hosting this panel. It was an honor to be a part of it. Thank you so much to our viewers for watching and to the other panelists for joining us here today for this conference. It's such a great experience, guys, and thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and good luck with coming out.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us today, for coming out and being plural in a singular world, a panel of people who have been out for a while or thinking about coming out for a while in the community. Have a great day and take good care of yourselves.